Hello and welcome to Connects Live. My name is Mark Michelson, and I'm hosting today with Dan Gingiss. And Dan is an author, a keynote speaker, a trainer, and a wonderful guy. He's based in Chicago, and he's going to be helping us with our in-person event that's going to be in Chicago on October 19th. So if you're in Chicago area, make sure to keep an eye on what we're doing here. But Dan, welcome. Appreciate you being here.
Well, thank you, Mark. Very excited to be here. Looking forward to the discussion and, of course, the questions from the audience.
Absolutely. So, the experience maker, that's a tough task. Tell us about that and what it is you cover. And you have a book now coming out, right? It's called The Experience Maker.
I do. In fact, here I've got a prop already. This is the Experience Maker, how to create remarkable experiences that your customers can't wait to share. It's available for pre-sale now because it's not out until September. But basically, the Experience Maker is what I felt like I had to become when I was in corporate America for 20 plus years as a marketer. And over time, it took me a while to figure this out, but I had a boss come to me. He's actually the chief digital officer of Discover Card, and he had recruited me to a digital customer experience role. Now, at the time, I had neither any digital experience or customer experience. And so I asked him, why did you pick me for this role? And his answer really changed the trajectory of my career. He said, I've been watching you in meetings, and you are always wearing the customer's hat. Every time we're trying to make a business decision, you're looking at it from a customer point of view. And I think we need that in the digital space. Now, this was around 2010 or so, 2012. And and that really changed my perspective from being a pure marketer to really someone that wanted to engage with customers. It was also the first role that I had that oversaw a social media team. And when I first got into social media, and you can find this data on my Twitter profile, the day I joined Twitter was the day that I took over this team because I was like, man, I better figure out this Twitter thing. And what immediately struck me was that social media was the first marketing channel where people could talk back to you. And I thought that was amazing. I thought that was so cool. I was so used to direct mail or new magazine advertising or even emails where it's outbound, it's one directional, and then all of a sudden social media created this ability to have a conversation. And to me, that's really what lifted customer experience, because when customers got a voice in social media, they used it and they said, we want a better experience. And they brought their complaints publicly and they brought their compliments publicly. So I felt like becoming the experience maker was what I had to do. And now I like to teach others how to do it.
I love that title, The Experience Maker. So, within that realm, I think you did another book about social media too, didn't you? It was like social media experiences.
Man, you're asking me to get all my props out here. That's over here. That's winning at social customer care. And yeah, that was really focused on the customer service element of social media, which again, I found way more fascinating than the marketing side. I think, a lot of companies to this day don't realize that social media has two words: social and media. It's not just publishing, it's about being social and about engaging with people. And so that book is really about the engagement part. It doesn't tell you how to create a viral video on Instagram. It's about how do you connect with your customers and talk with them and establish a relationship with them.
It's fascinating the idea that voice of customer, for instance, right? Yeah, I'm an old market researcher, literally, but if I look back, I mean, all of the kinds of inputs we had to get from customers was an effort. We had to go to them, do surveys, phone surveys, intercepts, focus groups, etc. How do we deal with the flood of information coming in from customers on social? Heck, I have a hard enough time keeping up with my own profile.
For sure. I mean, technology helps. There's no question about it, right? We've got to be able to sort through and find themes. I worked at one company where literally we would find out that the website was down from Twitter. Twitter would tell us before our own IT department would tell us, right? So
Wow.
the good news is it can be real time and it can help you address things like that. But also it's about being one-on-one, and it's about having the staff in the customer service or contact center to respond to people and to engage with them. And I think what happened really early on was companies said, well, we don't have the capabilities to do this. We don't have enough people. But you would never say that about the phone, right? You'd never say, just let it ring off the hook. We don't have enough people to answer it. You would staff accordingly based on the number of phone calls that were coming in. When email became popular, same thing. We had to bring in different contact center people with different skills because we had to have people now that could write, not just talk. Then came chat, and then came social. But for some reason in social, a lot of companies just said, forget about it. And so that's obviously not the right answer, because you've got so many people out there that are giving you such valuable feedback. And to me, it's voice of the customer on steroids. And it's out in the wild, right? I love surveys. I love collecting voice of the customer feedback in more formal methods. But sometimes when you just let people talk out in the world, you get the most honest feedback. And that feedback can be what you're doing really well, what they love about you. And so, hint, you should be doing more of it. And it could be things that are frustrating them, the pain points that you're creating, which are probably not on purpose, but customers are going to identify it. They're going to talk about it. And the best thing you can do in that case is not only respond to that customer, but dig deeper to find the root cause. Because we all know, anyone that spent any time in contact centers knows that if one person's complaining, it's probably 50 to 100 customers that are experiencing it per person and are not complaining. And that, of course, is the more dangerous part. Is I would so much rather have somebody complaining than just leave me and not say anything. Because when they leave me, they go to the competition. That's a double loss for me. And I don't even know what I did. So at least when somebody complains, generally they complain because they care. They want you to resolve their problem. And that's why it's so important that we staff accordingly to be able to engage.
It's interesting with all the larger technology companies in particular, and I'm picking on them. There are no humans there. I mean, apparently, I mean, you ever try to get through to any of them? I mean, there's no way to deal with someone in a call or face to face even.
I was just dealing with a company today, a fairly well-known, we'll call it it's a retailer, but it's one where you bid on the prices. So you may know this
Okay.
one. And I was having trouble as a seller, and trying to figure out how to contact them was so difficult. And even they lead you down a path where it says contact us, and then you click on the button, but it's not really the contact page; it's the FAQ page. And I do think that some companies make it obvious that they just don't want to talk to you. And again, I don't think that's the right answer. Um, the one of the things that companies miss a lot in customer experience, we calculate lifetime value, but we don't often think about lifetime value when there's a problem. What we think about is transactional value. Now, this is something that Amazon figured out so quickly. They're willing to lose money on the transaction because they know that your lifetime value is worth it. I ordered an entire set of pots and pans from Amazon. They came, one glass lid was broken, it was shattered. So I called up, all I wanted was a replacement lid. And the lady immediately at Amazon said, keep the whole set, I'm going to refund your money. That made me go instantly from, darn it, I have a broken lid, to lid? What lid? I just got 3 pots and pans, like it's a completely different experience. And I love Amazon even more because of it.
Hmm.
That's because they understood that it was okay for them to take the hit on the pots and pans, because now they've got a customer that's going to be with them forever. And I think so many companies miss that and don't do what they need to do in the moment, because of whatever reason. They don't think they have the staff, or they don't, they're afraid of a comment in social media being public, or whatever excuse it is. But you're really giving up that long-term value.
Yeah, you're so right. I mean, when they solve the problem, it is a hooray. And I've noticed that they have to be empowered from the top down. I mean, there's a design behind this in order for them to just easily do that with you on the phone, just effortlessly.
Absolutely.
That whole effortless thing is something that we were going to talk about here in this. How do you get more customers without selling? So that's
Yeah, so again, the subtitle of my book is How to Create Remarkable Experiences That Your Customers Can't Wait to Share. Now,
Mhm.
my view is that rather than yet another marketing campaign, if we create positive customer experiences, that causes people to talk about us. That's what we want. We want word of mouth marketing. That's the holy grail. Now, I found some research that showed that customers are actually more willing to share positive experiences than negative ones. Let me say that again. They are more willing to share positive experiences than negative ones. That doesn't seem to be right. And the reason is that when we look on social media, what do we see? We see negative ones all over the place. That's because as consumers, we don't actually have very many positive experiences. Most of the experiences we have with companies are what our millennial friends would call meh, right? Let me tell you about the perfectly average restaurant I went to last night. Said nobody ever,
Right.
right? So that's most of the experiences that we have. We have some bad ones, we have some average ones, we have very, very few positive ones. And I'd ask everybody who's watching right now, can you remember the last time that a brand wowed you so much that you couldn't wait to tell friends, family, colleagues? I'll wait because most of you probably can't. A few of you can. But if I asked you, hey, do you remember the last time a brand disappointed you? For most of you, that happened this week. And for some of you, it might have happened today because it happens so often. And so my belief is that if we're the company that creates positive experience and people start sharing those positive experiences, now we've got the best marketing you can have. We have credible, authentic customers talking about how nice it is to do business with us. And as consumers, that's all we want. We want to do business with companies that are good to us. And I think, again, creating the positive experiences is the way to go. And the good news is, as my book lays out, it's not difficult, it's not expensive. You don't have to go. This is not about bringing all your clients in for a private fireworks show that you got to shell out $500,000 for. Yeah, that's a really cool experience, but that's not the kind of thing that I'm suggesting. And instead, I lean on dozens of real life examples from companies that are simple, practical, and inexpensive. They're things that you can look at and you will look at and you'll say, why are we not doing this? And I could do this tomorrow. I don't even need my boss's permission. It's not going to cost us anything to do it. And those are the kinds of things that to me are so fun to share because they make all the difference.
So when you think about that, getting leadership to buy in or pay attention, and just like the Amazon example, they had the empowerment to do that, or doing something where it's okay because there's no cost. But how about the whole culture fit? How do you get leadership to pay attention to the whole enchilada, if you will, of the X factor?
Yeah, absolutely. And that is a challenge because I think the companies that are doing it really well always have leadership. It's coming from the top down. The companies that are trying their best but not quite there yet, it's coming from the bottom up. I think one of the best ways is to measure and to show the ROI. I share a study in my book by Watermark Consulting that looked at the Forrester Customer Experience Index, which is, as you know, it's one of the lists you really want to be on if you are serious about customer experience. Well, Watermark looked at all of the public companies on the list over an 11-year period and compared their stock returns to the S&P 500.
Hmm.
Now, what they found was that the leaders crushed the market and the laggards were well behind the market. But the thing that stood out to me was that the leaders performed 3 times as well as the laggards, which says to me, given that there are lots of inputs that affect stock price, but nothing better than profitability, that CX has an ROI, that focusing on customer experience and making that experience memorable has positive ROI for the business. That's what executives care about. The problem is when customer experience gets pitched as sort of a squishy or soft science, then they're not interested, right? And so if you can't come with the numbers to back it up, you're not going to get the buy-in.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, and even tougher is, I guess, maybe as a consultant on the outside, right? Yeah, it's tough enough to get it from the inside, but
Yeah.
those who are on the outside. Any advice for that? I mean, how do you get someone to pay attention to doing the right thing, or simple things?
Well, one of the best, I think, metrics to look at is customer retention. And I talk about this theme in the book called the leaky bucket. And the leaky bucket is essentially a bucket of customers that's got a hole in it. And those are the customers that are walking out the back door. And as we said before, they're not telling you they're leaving. They're just quiet. They're quiet defectors. So they're leaving. They're probably leaving to the competition, and you don't know why. And so to me, that's retention rate, right? And that's one of the things that you have to track. If you are spending so much time grinding your sales team to get more and more sales in order to make up for the customers walking out the door. Hey, I got an idea. Why don't you spend some time trying to shut the back door so that they don't leave? And you're going to save those customers. You're going to take the pressure off of the sales team to have to always be bringing in higher and higher numbers of new customers. And better yet, you're going to get those customers that stay to start referring you to other people. And that's how you grow the business consistently. So one of the things I always suggest that people measure as a way to demonstrate the value of CX is your retention rate. And you should be able to lower your retention rate if you start employing some of the tactics of a good customer experience strategy.
Excellent. Well, we do have a couple questions. I want to bring up Jacob Stroberg here. He's got a thought here about the social.
Hey, Dan, how are you?
Good. How you doing, Jacob?
I'm good. I'm with letUsrespond.com. I think you've met Tony before.
Yeah, absolutely.
So question, when we were doing research to start this new service, about 80% of companies were not responding to their social feedback. Do you think that number's gotten any better?
I think it's gotten a little bit better. It's such a frustrating number because I started talking about this. I mean, the social media book I wrote was in 2017, and that number was about the same then. I think it's gotten a little bit better. I do think that especially some large companies, including one that I worked for, have made an internal excuse that they just can't possibly have enough people in their company to respond. And again, I think that's a BS answer because we wouldn't do that for other channels. And what we found is, first of all, certain parts of the population prefer social media as a channel of first resort. And that was a change since 2017, right? That people started figuring out, hey, when I go, I mean, I personally, whenever I need help from a brand, I go to Twitter DM. That's the first place I go. And it's, you know, it's not public. I'm not embarrassing somebody. I get generally great responses and fast. I think the issue is that when people use social as a channel of last resort, that means they've already failed at getting their response from your call center or from your email or whatever. So now think about it. You've already spent all this money on them, because you've had a call and you've had an email. The problem is still there. And now they're out to really embarrass you in public. And so I think by not showing up there, you're not doing anything to either help the customer or help your own reputation.
And I think that also ties in with manager or upper management buy-in. That's the other problem. Like people say, yeah, I know we have that problem, but we got to go up to the CEO for the budget, or however high they got to go.
And one of the things you can do there is, cherry pick some of the best comments on social media, some of the ones that make you wince, right? And put those on the CEO's desk. Because look, there's no executive that wants their customers to have a bad experience, right? They may not be focused on customer experience, but the whole idea is if we have a product or service to sell, we need our customers to like that product or service. Otherwise, we don't have customers and then we don't have a company. Right. So I think inherently executives understand the value, but sometimes you have to see it to believe it. And most executives that I know, with the exception of obviously some fairly famous ones, are not on Twitter, are not active in social media. So they're not seeing it. You put in front of them a top 10 list of here's top 10 tweets about why people hate our company. My guess is that's a wake-up call.
Okay.
Excellent. We do have a couple more questions. I want to make sure we get to everyone. Rich.
Hey, Rich.
Hey, Dan, how's it going?
Great. Thanks for being here, and thanks for being brave enough to ask a question.
No problem. Not a problem for me anyway. My question really gets back to the core of your book, okay, The Experience Maker, and specifically how to create remarkable experiences that your customers can't wait to share. So my question really focuses on not so much the responding to feedback or following up on a transaction, positive or negative, which companies do or don't do. Some are doing it better than others, but that's great. But that's the whack-a-mole, being reactive to something that has already happened. My question really gets to the front of that. To the extent that from your experience, how can we do a better job at the corporate level of actually intentionally designing a wow experience? What are the key ingredients around getting alignment? And what process, if any, that you can describe from your experience would get you to think about ideally what a great experience is and then go about and creating one?
Yeah, great question. I'm going to give you a sneak peek on the framework that I set up in the book that I refer to as WISER. And WISER is an acronym. It's meant to make you wiser than the competition. And the R in WISER is about being responsive, but the WISE part is really about creating the experience. And there's those four elements are witty, immersive, shareable, and extraordinary. And I go through each of those four and share real life examples of companies using that technique and each one of those techniques. And you don't have to use all four of them. You can use even one and improve the experience that you have. And my view is that customer experience does not have to be a massive overhaul. It's oftentimes a series of small improvements. It's removing pain points from an experience. It is creating an experience where one doesn't exist. So 2 examples there. Under witty, I share one of my favorite examples of a company that decided to have some fun with its legal disclosures. So think about that. Legal disclosures are probably the most boring part of an interaction with a company. Most people just skip over them. But when your legal disclosure starts with the word all in caps, covering our butts, you know what happens? People read the legal disclosure. And the legal disclosure, by the way, in this example, I make the joke of it's like a lawyer and a marketer walked into a bar and they came out with this disclosure. And it's funny. It's an experience to read it. And best of all, because if you think about the point of a legal disclosure, we want the customers to know what they're getting themselves into. And if they read it, then they will know that, right? So that's taking an experience where one doesn't exist and creating something that's memorable. On the flip side, when I was at Discover Card, we were taking feedback, and this gets the other question that Mark had about how do you siphon all of this feedback. So we had a feedback mechanism on our website where people could leave a rating and a comment on every page of our website, thousands of pages. And I would get this daily report that just listed by time all of the pieces of feedback, and it was dozens of pages long. Now, I don't know what to do with this unless they're all complaining about the same thing. It was really hard to find trends. So we added one question to the little survey that said, how easy was it to do business with Discover today? Collected that for about 6 weeks. And then I went back and asked for the report in a different format. I wanted it by page, and I wanted it based on the answer to that question. So of course I went right to what's the most difficult page on our site? It turns out it was a critical page, which was the refer a friend page. You know, the one where you put in your friends' emails, you can get $50 for every one. Well, a certain browser wasn't showing the submit button. So people were putting in their friends' names and emails, and then they were stuck. It was annoying them. Well, that was a simple one line of code change. So we made it overnight. The score went back to normal. The next thing I did was I went through the next 99 pages of the ones being difficult. And every one of them had a tiny fix. It's like the death by 1,000 fix. We fixed them all. And it is no coincidence that that year, Discover won the J.D. Power Award for customer satisfaction for the first time, beating out Amex, who had won it every year previously. And that is not a coincidence. So it's really the two pieces are build experiences where they don't exist or improve them using the WISE methodology, and then look for pain points and get rid of them. And most of the time, pain points are not that hard to get rid of. It just is, it's little things that annoy customers over and over again. And we know our customers don't have patience for that anymore.
Thank you. Great answer.
We have time for
My
two more questions here. Scott, let's bring you up here.
Oh, hey, thank you, Mark. Hey, Dan, fantastic. Your last comment made me think I was on HubSpot last week and I was searching through their knowledge base and I got to the point where I went to hit submit and their chat button showed up. Hi, we noticed you need, and that chat button stayed on top of the submit button. I couldn't get rid of it. So I couldn't submit my comment. But hey, what are your thoughts on governance model? There's this thought of the hierarchical structure hierarchical is very tight, loose network, let people do what they want, which is good. But in the absence of some sort of structure about customer experience, people don't know what to do. So when things are written down, you can follow them, you can change them, you can understand them. So and maybe relate it to the social media comment a few questions ago. If there's some clear governance model of how to handle these things, does that help or does that lock people up and hinder the freedom?
Yeah, so great question. I'm going to tie this into, I see that Christopher Brennan asked a question about people's roles in CX as well. And I want to tie it back into the discussion about Amazon. So one of the things that I talk about in the book, and actually I have a blog on this. I can put the link in when I'm done talking, I'll throw it in the chat. But Amazon has a set of 6 customer service tenets, and this is on a sign. I had a little insider at the company shoot a photo of this sign and send it to me. And it's 6 customer service tenets that they ask all of their employees to abide by. But they don't tell them how. They don't script it out for them, but they say things like, always try to solve the problem for the customer, or, whatever it is, try to make things simpler and easier. And so the idea is that all employees understand that this is the lens that we look at problems through. Then we have to empower all of our employees, as we talked about with my pots and pans example. That agent didn't have to ask her boss or her boss's boss to refund my money. She was empowered to do it, and do it immediately. And I think that's really important. And we can empower all employees. We can empower the lawyers to have a little fun with their legalese. We can empower the finance team to look at, how do we invoice people? What payment methods do we accept? Are our invoices clear? Do they make sense? Do customers understand what they're getting charged? Is there any way that we can add a little wittiness or a little fun to the point where they have to pay us, which we know is probably not the most fun part of the experience, right? So if everyone feels like they have input into the experience, then you really just need these sort of set of guardrails, as you say, that says, look, it's okay. It is okay to make a business decision that makes it right for the customer. We're never going to get mad at you for that, right? Some companies set budgets for every employee, and they say, okay, you can spend X $1,000. That's another way of doing it. The first company I ever worked for out of college had a wonderful policy on employees that said you can make any mistake once. And people made some gigantic mistakes, but they learned from them. They never made them again. And the company really was okay with making mistakes, because it allowed, we say, now the term is fail fast or fail hard or whatever it is. And the idea is, let people experiment in the name of trying to make a better experience. And if it doesn't work, okay, you're not going to get fired for trying.
Oh, excellent. Christopher, did you want to come on and ask anything more, or have another color comment? It's up to you. If you would like to, you can just.
No, you've answered my question sufficiently. Thank you.
Okay, excellent.
Thank you for asking it, Christopher.
Yay. All right. Well, we are at the end of our time for the fireside chat. I just want to point out a few things for those who are watching the recording. We're here every Wednesday, and we have about at least half of our time is spent in networking and talking with each other. So it's not all just one, it's not like a webinar where we're just one to many, but we're actually getting ready to go do that now. The other thing I'd like to share with everyone is we are going to be meeting in person. We have events planned right now in Boston, in Boston, in Chicago, in Atlanta, and in Austin. You can find more information about that on our website, which is cxforums.org. Dan, thank you so much. Wonderful chat today. And I really look forward to making the event in Chicago fantastic with your help. And
My pleasure, Mark.
City Winery. That's going to be a lot of fun.
So yeah, we're going to have a great time. Come join us in the Windy City. October's a great time to be here. It's not cold yet, usually. Hopefully there'll be some playoff baseball with any luck, and we'd love to see you.
Excellent. Well, hey, once again, thanks everyone for coming to Connects Live. We're going to be back again next week, and our guest next week is Lisa Norell. She is a CMO, and she runs several different CMO groups around the East Coast. So we're going to learn a little bit more about how CX mingles and plays with marketing, which is kind of a big area right now. It's like, who's in charge here? You're watching these little battles happen on the corporate field. But anyhow, we're going to take it out now and go right into our networking. So be sure to drop your LinkedIn profiles over in the chat bar and find everyone else's. We're going to go there in just a second. Audrey, let's take it out.